Every country tells a story about itself. Some talk about innovation, some talk about freedom, some talk about destiny. These stories are repeated in speeches, written into school books, and broadcast across the world. But behind all of them, behind the flags, the promises, and the politics, there is a quieter force at work. A force that does not care about culture, history, or ambition. It does not respond to patriotism, and it does not negotiate with hope. It only responds to numbers. And once a country takes on enough of it, the story slowly stops being theirs to write. Because debt doesn't just sit on a balance sheet, it whispers into every decision. It shapes every budget. It quietly decides what is possible and what is not. Right now, global debt is higher than it has ever been in human history. Not slightly higher, not temporarily higher. Governments borrow to build roads, to fund schools, to run healthcare systems, to support economies during recessions, and to calm voters during crises. It comes with pressure, and over time, it changes how countries behave. It's a story about incentives, and incentives are more powerful than intentions. And the government promises to pay it back later with interest. Simple, legal, normal, but interest never stops. Every year, the bill grows. And the bigger the debt becomes, the more of the national budget disappears into servicing it. Hospitals don't get built with interest payments. Schools don't get upgraded with interest payments. Infrastructure doesn't improve with interest payments. And here's the part most people miss. Investors don't treat every country the same. They reward stability and punish risk. Strong economies borrow cheaply. A country with a stable currency, predictable politics, and strong institutions can borrow at low interest rates. A country with political chaos, economic uncertainty, or weak institutions has to offer higher returns to attract lenders. The countries that already struggle are charged more for the same money. Debt doesn't just reflect success, it reinforces it. Country A has a strong economy, stable leadership, and trusted institutions. Investors feel safe lending to it. Interest rates stay low. Country B has an unstable economy, unpredictable politics, and fragile systems. Investors demand higher returns to compensate for risk. Both borrow money. But country A spends less on interest, so it has more money left to invest in growth. Country B spends more on interest, so it has less money for development. Over time, the gap widens. Not because one country is smarter, not because one works harder, but because debt compounds differently. Debt doesn't just grow, it reshapes the future. At first, borrowing feels empowering. New projects appear, big announcements are made, politicians cut ribbons, progress looks visible, but eventually, the payments start to dominate the budget. Debt servicing becomes one of the largest expenses. That ESPON policy stops being about what is best for citizens and starts being about what keeps creditors calm. Spending gets tighter. Not because leaders want to hurt people, but because they have fewer options. Debt turns choices into obligations. No one needs to threaten a country with tanks anymore. Markets do it with numbers. If investors lose confidence, they sell bonds. Interest rates rise. Everyday life gets harder. Leaders respond by cutting spending or raising taxes. Not because it's popular, but because it's necessary to restore confidence. Confidence is a financial emotion, and it governs real lives. Here's the uncomfortable part. Debt doesn't just affect economies. It shapes politics. When a government owes massive sums, its survival depends on market approval. That approval comes from financial institutions, credit rating agencies, and international lenders. Their priorities are simple: stability, repayment, predictability, not social reform, not long-term equality, not environmental investment, so policies become cautious. Reforms slow down. Debt doesn't create tyranny, it creates restraint, and restraint decides outcomes. Publicly, success is measured in GDP, growth rates, trade deals, and stock markets. Privately, success is measured in borrowing costs. If your interest rates are low, you're considered strong. If they're high, you're considered risky. It doesn't matter how innovative your people are. It doesn't matter how ambitious your plans sound. If your debt looks dangerous, your future becomes expensive. Debt doesn't collapse countries overnight. It reshapes them slowly. Budgets shrink. Public investment declines. Infrastructure ages. Talent leaves. Not because the country failed, but because servicing the past leaves less room for building the future. Meanwhile, countries with cheaper debt keep expanding. They build faster, innovate more, attract more capital. The gap becomes structural. Success becomes inherited. Now zoom out. Debt isn't just a national issue. It's a global system. Countries lend to each other. Banks lend to governments. Institutions lend to entire regions. Money moves across borders faster than people ever could. And every dollar, every euro, every yen comes with expectations attached. When those expectations aren't met, pressure follows. Quiet pressure. Financial pressure. The kind that doesn't make headlines, but changes lives. In developing countries, the pressure is heavier, borrowing costs are higher, currency risk is stronger, external shocks hit harder. A rise in global interest rates can suddenly make old loans much more expensive. A weak currency can double the cost of foreign debt overnight. A crisis that started somewhere else can destroy budgets at home. And when that happens, governments are forced to choose. Not between good and bad, but between bad and worse. They cut fuel subsidies, food becomes more expensive, they reduce healthcare spending, hospitals struggle, they freeze public wages. Workers feel it. None of this happens because leaders enjoy it. It happens because debt leaves no room to breathe. And yet, the public story remains optimistic. Growth is always around the corner. Reforms are always on the way, but the numbers tell a quieter truth. When a country spends more on interest than on education, the future becomes fragile. When debt payments compete with healthcare, social stability weakens. When investors matter more than voters, democracy feels thinner. There is a strange irony in all of this. Debt is often taken in the name of progress, to build, to grow, to modernize. But too much of it freezes progress in place. It promises movement and delivers constraint. It looks like opportunity and behaves like gravity. And gravity always wins. This is not a moral story. It is a mechanical one. Debt follows rules. Markets follow incentives. Outcomes follow math. Some countries start with advantages. Others don't. Debt doesn't fix that. It amplifies it. And once the system is in motion, even good intentions can't easily change its direction. So when you see a country rising, ask what its borrowing costs look like. When you see another struggling, look at how much of its budget disappears into interest. Because behind every national success story is a balance sheet. And behind every balance sheet is a quiet decision about the future. Not made by voters, not made by leaders, made by debt. And once that decision is in motion, it doesn't ask for permission. It just keeps collecting. Thanks for watching. If you found this perspective valuable, consider subscribing for more videos that look behind the headlines.